Hello everybody, this is Albert with Green Tea House. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about which of the 6 categories that come from Camellia sinensis are the best to buy if you're on a budget. Now before we begin, if you haven't done so already, please visit us here in Green, Texas. We're right outside of New Braunfels. If you're ever between San Antonio or Austin, come visit us. Also subscribe and hit the notification bell so these episodes come fresh to you. And post a comment if you like, if you agree or disagree with what I'm going to say. So as a review, there's 6 families or categories that come from the tea plant, otherwise known as Camellia sinensis. We have green, white, yellow, oolong, black, and dark teas, the most famous dark tea being pu'er. Now we have separate episodes here, and I'll try to remember to put them over here. What exactly is a green tea, what exactly is a white tea, and so forth. We're not going to spend time on the different categories and why they're that. What we're talking about today is bang for your buck. Which of the 6 categories is the best to get in terms of the amount of juice, for lack of a better word, that it has for you to do multiple infusions. And to understand this, you have to have a little kind of review, or recapitulate, as they say, of the tea plant and where the leaves come from in your tea determine a lot of factors. And we have episodes on this, especially when it comes to caffeine and whatnot. So Camellia sinensis, you can say that maybe there's 3 broad categories. You're going to have teas that come from the buds, the babies, teas that come from the bud set, which is going to be a baby and then the 2 leaves underneath, and then teas that come from the more mature leaves, which would be underneath that. And then you can even have teas that come from even further than that. And really, there's a 5th category of teas that come from the branches and the twigs, like kukicha, for example. But we're going to focus on the first 3. So within each of the 6 categories, you'll find teas that come from the buds, it comes from the bud sets, and so forth. But the key is this. The teas, the categories, or even within a certain category, you'll see various cultivars. So for example, like green tea. You'll find green teas that just come from the buds, the babies. The most famous would be matcha and gyokuro. And then the majority of green teas are going to come from the bud set, so the buds and then the 2 leaves underneath. And the majority of teas in general are going to come from the bud sets, regardless of the category. But there's going to be certain categories that come from more mature leaves, like pu'er, dark teas, and oolongs. Not to generalize, but those would be the 2 main categories. So if you are looking at, okay, I need to buy a tea or get a category of tea that I can infuse multiple times, you want to be looking at categories that have bigger leaves, so further down on the tree, because the bigger the leaves, the more juice they're going to have. So this is going to eliminate the teas, regardless of what category, that come from the buds. So you look at silver needle white, comes from the buds. You look at gyokuro and matcha on the green side, they come from the buds. You look at first flush Darjeelings, they come from the buds or the bud sets. So this is going to eliminate those categories. So what category comes from mature leaves? Oolong. And you know this because oolong, if you ever drink an oolong, and we sell 4 or 5 oolongs. We have Dongding, otherwise known as Frozen Summit, or Icy Peak from Taiwan. We have Oriental Beauty, otherwise known as Bai Hao from Taiwan. We have Iron Goddess of Mercy from China. When you steep a classic oolong, it's going to come kind of in a knot. That's part of the processing of oolong. That's one of the characteristics of oolong. And then when you steep it, you're going to see the leaves open up. And so it's great, and this is why we believe in using the 5 senses to drink tea. This is why we serve in glass teapots. You can unroll your tea after you've pulled it out and look at the leaves. And so oolongs come from the more mature leaves, and therefore they're going to have more surface area, and therefore they're going to have more juice, for lack of a better word. So for all these reasons, they're susceptible, or conducive, I should say, to multiple infusions, because there's just going to be more surface area than if you look at a gyokuro, for example. And it's not to say you can't do multiple infusions of a gyokuro. What I'm saying is that bang for your buck, oolong is the best, because they're bigger leaves and you can do multiple infusions. If you look historically, gongfu, kind of the traditional Chinese way to drink tea in a group, gongfu was historically using they'd be using oolongs. And why? Because you can get multiple infusions. And I would say, honestly, oolong, out of the 6 categories, if you're not looking for health benefits, but if you're looking at just pure complexity of taste or pure taste, oolongs are really the best. Partly because there's a wide range of oolongs, because you're looking at anywhere from 30 to 70% oxidation on oolongs. So you're getting this wide range. So if you're going to a lighter oolong like Dongding, to a stronger oolong like Iron Goddess of Mercy, there's going to be different tastes. But In general, I would say, and I would say most tea experts would agree, that oolongs have the most complex of tastes. They have the most varied of tastes, and you'll really see this with multiple infusions, because if you are doing multiple infusions of oolongs, change the time a little, change the temperature, you're going to notice the tastes are different. And so, in closing, I would do oolongs. You're going to find on all 6 categories, there's going to be teas or cultivars of those categories. They're going to be more affordable, and then you're going to find the more higher ends. Oolongs, of course, are going to be no different, but you can find really good quality oolongs that are going to be like entry point or reasonable price points, let's say, for the college student, and infuse them multiple times. And because you can infuse them and you don't have to get a new fresh amount of a teaspoon and a half or whatever, they're just going to last longer. Now remember a couple of things. A session is how many times you infuse a tea, a given set of teaspoon and a half or whatever you want to talk about. And so with a session, you have to remember that once you get those leaves wet, there is a ticking clock, kind of like with salmonella and raw eggs. They always tell you, don't eat raw cookie dough, there's a chance you can get salmonella poisoning. The chances are very slim. It's the same thing with wet tea leaves. Once you get your tea leaves wet, after about, depending on who you talk to, 6 to 8 hours, there is a chance of mold growth, and then you're drinking mold, and you don't want to do that. So once you get your tea leaves wet, that's when the session starts, and that's when you want to drink your multiple infusions. Now, when I drink, I go through a session. Normally, I infuse 3 times. That's my session. I can do that in 30, 45 minutes. But just in general, once you start steeping your oolong, for example, just infuse it multiple times until there's no longer juice coming out of it, and then throw it out within 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours, and then use new, fresh, dried tea. So give it a shot with oolong. You can easily infuse. You can do 2-minute infusions easily 8 times with oolongs. They're just an amazingly complex tea. I would not say that they're the healthiest of the 6 categories, but if you're looking for a great taste at a great budget, I would go with oolong. Guys, post in the comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Until next time, take care. God bless.